Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something straight. Around the world, leaders, analysts, and nations are watching one story unfold: the rise of India. And they are not just watching casually, they are watching with concern, with surprise, and sometimes with fear. Because when a country of more than 1 billion people starts moving forward with discipline, vision, and unstoppable energy, it changes the balance of the world. This is not a story of chance. This is not an accident. This is the result of years of resilience, hard work, and a burning belief in a better future. But make no mistake, when India rises, it doesn't rise quietly. It rises like a force of nature. It rises with innovation, with strength, with ambition. And that, my friends, is why the world is alarmed. Because unstoppable growth does not just compete, it inspires, it challenges, and it redefines what is possible. And today, I want to break it down for you: why this rise is unstoppable, why it's making the world sit up, and why it carries lessons for every single one of us. India's unstoppable rise begins with one of the greatest strengths any nation can have: its people. And not just people in general, but a population that is young, ambitious, and hungry for success. Today, when you look around the world, you see countries struggling with an aging population, declining birth rates, and shrinking workforces. Entire economies are slowing down because they do not have the energy or manpower to keep them running. But India is the exact opposite. India is standing at the center of a demographic revolution. With more than 65% of its citizens under the age of 35, it is not just a young country, it is the youngest major nation on earth. This means energy, this means fresh thinking, this means ambition that will not stop. And that is exactly why the world is watching with alarm. Because here is the truth: when a country has this kind of youth power, it is not just about numbers, it is about possibility. Every young mind is a dream waiting to happen, every young hand is a builder waiting to create, and every young heart is a fighter ready to push forward. The world knows this. They know that when millions of young people move in one direction, they can move mountains. Youth is power, youth is speed, and youth is transformation. And India has this power at a scale the world has never seen before. But numbers alone are not enough. What makes this rise even more unstoppable is that this generation of young Indians is not sitting idle. They are educated, connected, and ambitious. They are growing up in a world where technology puts knowledge at their fingertips. They can learn from the best in the world, connect with opportunities beyond borders, and create innovations that travel faster than ever before. The smartphone in the hands of a young Indian today is not just a device. It is a tool of empowerment, a weapon of opportunity, a doorway to the global stage. And when over 500 million young people hold that power, it is not just progress, it is a tidal wave. Think about it. The youth of India are not waiting for someone else to hand them the future. They are ready to build it themselves. They are creating start-ups, launching businesses, writing code, building technologies, and driving industries that are shaping the future. They are not afraid to take risks. They are not afraid to fail. Because they know failure is not the end. Failure is a step towards success. This kind of mindset is dangerous, not dangerous to India, but dangerous to those who fear competition. Because when you combine youth with courage, with hunger, and with opportunity, you create a force that no one can stop. This is why the world is alarmed, because they see what is coming. They see a workforce so vast that it will dominate the global economy. They see innovation coming from unexpected places. They see ambition rising from villages, from towns, from cities across the nation. They see an India that is not only prepared for the future, but ready to shape it. And the truth is, they are right to be concerned, because history shows us that whenever a nation harnesses the power of its youth, it becomes a leader, it becomes a powerhouse, it becomes a force that changes the world order. India's youth is not just the strength of today, it is the guarantee of tomorrow. And when you have that kind of energy driving a nation forward, when you have that kind of fire in the hearts of millions, there is no slowing down. That is the power of demographics, that is why India's rise is unstoppable, and that is why the world cannot ignore it. For many years, the world underestimated India. They thought of it as the land of call centers, as a country that only provided cheap labor or back office support. They saw it as a follower, not a leader. But today, that image is shattered into pieces, and the world is realizing something they never expected. India is no longer just participating in the global economy. It is driving it with innovation, creativity, and technology. And that shift is shaking the foundations of the old order, because when innovation comes from a nation with over 1 billion people, it does not come quietly, it comes like a storm, and it changes everything in its path. Think about it. Innovation has always been seen as the playground of a few powerful nations. Silicon Valley, Europe, Japan, these were the names that dominated the story of technology and progress. But now, India has entered that story not as a side character, but as a main player. In Bengaluru, Hyderabad, Pune, and many other cities, young innovators are building companies that compete with the best in the world. India is home to one of the fastest growing startup ecosystems on the planet, producing unicorns at a speed that shocks the global markets. These are not companies copying ideas from the West. These are homegrown innovations, solving problems unique to India and then scaling them to the world. Take digital platforms, for example. India built the Aadhaar system, the largest biometric ID program in the world, linking over 1 billion people with technology that gives them access to banking, healthcare, and services. India created UPI, a digital payment system that is so advanced and so efficient that even developed countries are now studying it, learning from it, and in some cases trying to replicate it. Imagine that. Nations that once dismissed India as outdated are now looking to it for the future of finance. That is not just progress, that is leadership, and leadership through innovation is what alarms the world the most. It doesn't stop at digital systems. Look at space technology. India shocked the world by launching missions to Mars at a fraction of the cost of other nations. When Chandrayaan landed on the moon's south pole, it was not just a scientific achievement, it was a statement. It was proof that innovation does not belong to the few, it belongs to the bold, and India is bold. Every time the country reaches space, every time it launches a satellite, every time it achieves more with less, it challenges the idea that only wealthy nations can lead in science. That shakes the balance of pride, and yes, it alarms the world. Innovation in India is not limited to labs and engineers. It is happening in villages, in small towns, and in communities where people are solving problems with creativity and resourcefulness. Farmers are using apps to check market prices. Students are building solutions for clean water and renewable energy. Entrepreneurs are using technology to reach millions of customers who were ignored by traditional businesses. This is grassroots innovation, and it is just as powerful as high-tech breakthroughs. When innovation reaches every corner of a country, it creates unstoppable momentum. And here is the key. Innovation is not just about technology, it is about mindset. India's new mindset is not one of dependence, but of independence. It is not about waiting for solutions from the outside, it is about creating solutions from within. That shift in thinking is more dangerous to the old world order than any weapon, any army, or any treaty. Because when a nation starts believing that it can solve its own problems, it becomes free, and when it becomes free, it becomes powerful. That is why the world is alarmed, because they see India moving from follower to leader, from imitator to innovator, from learner to teacher. And they know that once this innovation engine is fully unleashed, it will be impossible to stop. India is not only catching up, it is showing the world a new way forward, and that changes everything. The story of India's unstoppable rise is not just written in numbers, technology, or economics. It is written in resilience, because behind every success, behind every leap forward, there are decades, even centuries of challenges that could have broken a weaker nation. But instead of breaking, India learned to bend, to adapt, and to rise again. And that resilience has become the backbone of its growth. The world is alarmed not just because India is moving forward, but because it is doing so with a kind of toughness that makes it impossible to slow down. For hundreds of years, India endured colonial exploitation that drained its wealth, suppressed its industries, and tried to strip it of its confidence. At independence, the country was left poor, divided, and written off by many as too weak to survive. Famines, poverty, and political instability were supposed to hold it back forever. But resilience changes the game. Instead of accepting defeat, India stood back up. Instead of giving in to hopelessness, it built institutions, it invested in democracy, and it planted the seeds of growth. Every time the world said, "It cannot be done," India answered with action. That ability to keep going when the odds are against you, that is resilience. The 1990s brought another test. The country faced an economic crisis that could have collapsed its future. But instead of collapsing, India reformed. It opened its markets, it encouraged entrepreneurship, it let its people show what they were capable of. And what happened? From the ruins of crisis came decades of growth that lifted millions out of poverty. This is the essence of resilience, to turn setbacks into stepping stones, to use adversity as fuel. That lesson is now deeply rooted in India's DNA, but resilience is not only about the past, it is also about today. Think of how India faced the global pandemic. With a population of over 1 billion, the challenges were massive. Yet the country not only manufactured vaccines for itself, it became the pharmacy of the world, supplying vaccines to dozens of countries. That was not just science, that was resilience in action, the ability to stand strong in crisis, to protect itself, and to help others at the same time. The world saw that and realized something important. This is not a fragile nation anymore. This is a nation that thrives under pressure. Resilience also shows in the spirit of the people. Every day, millions of Indians face obstacles, poverty, inequality, lack of resources. But instead of surrendering, they push forward. A child in a village walks miles to go to school. A worker in a city finds a way to provide for their family despite hardship. An entrepreneur starts a business with almost nothing, refusing to be limited by their circumstances. This everyday resilience creates a culture of determination that cannot be measured in statistics but is felt in the nation's heartbeat. And when that spirit is multiplied across hundreds of millions of people, it creates an unstoppable force. The world is alarmed because resilience makes India unpredictable. You cannot count it out, you cannot write it off, you cannot stop it with obstacles. The more challenges it faces, the stronger it becomes. This is what makes India dangerous to those who want to maintain control, because resilience ensures survival, and survival ensures progress. A nation that refuses to quit, refuses to collapse, and refuses to stay down is a nation that will eventually rise above all odds. This resilience is now shaping the future. It gives India the confidence to stand tall on the global stage, to assert its interests, and to keep building despite pressures from outside or inside. And the world knows that a resilient India is an unstoppable India. That is why the world is not just watching its rise, it is alarmed by it, because resilience turns weakness into strength, and once strength is forged in fire, it cannot be broken again. For a long time, India's role in the global arena was quiet, almost invisible. It was a country focused on its own struggles, trying to lift its people out of poverty and rebuild from centuries of exploitation. The world's big decisions were made elsewhere by powers who believed they would always dominate the stage. But times have changed, and today, India is no longer sitting silently on the sidelines. It is speaking with confidence, demanding its place, and showing the world that no important conversation about the future can happen without its presence. That shift is not just noticed, it is shaking the balance of power, and that is exactly why the world is alarmed. When India speaks now, it speaks with authority. It stands firm in global organizations, whether it is at the United Nations, at climate change summits, or in international trade negotiations. It does not simply nod along to what others decide. It presents its own vision, its own priorities, and its own demands. This new assertiveness is not arrogance, it is confidence built on growth, resilience, and a clear understanding of its potential. For countries that were used to India being passive, this confidence is unsettling, because they realize that their monopoly on decision-making is over. Look at the way India has positioned itself in global geopolitics. It is building partnerships not just with one bloc or one group, but across the world. It engages with the United States, with Europe, with Russia, with Asia, with Africa, not as a weak partner desperate for favors, but as a strong nation negotiating from a position of strength. It is playing the global game with independence, refusing to be pressured into choosing sides. That independence alarms traditional powers because it proves that India cannot be controlled. It will cooperate, but on its own terms. The voice of India is also amplified by its economic rise. As one of the fastest growing economies in the world, it is becoming a magnet for investment and a hub for global supply chains. Companies that once ignored India now see it as essential to their future. And with economic power comes political influence. The world knows this money talks, and growth commands respect. That is why the same nations that once dismissed India are now trying hard to win its friendship, its partnership, and its trust. They realize that India's choices can shape the future of trade, technology, and global security. And then there is the moral weight of India's voice. This is a nation that represents more than 1 billion people, a democracy that is proving its ability to hold together incredible diversity, and a society that carries the aspirations of the global South. When India speaks, it does not just speak for itself. It speaks for many nations that feel overlooked, ignored, or exploited by the old order. That makes India's presence even more powerful, because it is not a lone voice, it is the voice of millions across the world who want fairness, respect, and equality. This influence extends beyond politics and economics. It reaches culture, ideas, and values. From yoga to cinema, from literature to technology, India's presence is global. Its traditions inspire, its creativity spreads, and its perspectives shape conversations everywhere. This soft power is just as strong as its hard power, because it changes the way people see the world. And when you combine influence at the political level, the economic level, and the cultural level, you get a force that cannot be ignored. The world is alarmed because they see an India that is no longer satisfied with being a supporting character. It is stepping into the role of a leader, and leadership changes everything. Old powers feel threatened when new voices rise, because leadership means influence, and influence means control over the future. India is not just asking for a seat at the table anymore, it is taking it. And once it takes that seat, the global game will never be the same again. At the heart of India's unstoppable rise lies something deeper than economics, demographics, or even innovation. It is the spirit of determination. Because numbers alone do not make a nation powerful, and resources alone do not guarantee progress, what truly drives transformation is the mindset of a people, the refusal to accept limits, the hunger to achieve, and the courage to push forward no matter the odds. And this is where India's strength becomes undeniable. Determination is not just part of its story, it is the very fuel that powers its rise, and that is what alarms the world. Everywhere you look in India, you see this determination in action. It is in the student who studies late at night under the dim light of a single bulb, dreaming of becoming an engineer or a doctor. It is in the farmer who refuses to give up despite droughts, floods, or uncertainty, finding new ways to feed his family and his nation. It is in the young entrepreneur who builds a startup from scratch, facing rejection after rejection, but refusing to quit until success arrives. This determination is not limited to the elite or the privileged, it runs through the veins of the entire population, from the smallest villages to the busiest cities. And when determination spreads across more than 1 billion people, it becomes a force greater than any government, any policy, or any obstacle. This spirit of determination has been tested again and again, and each time it has grown stronger. For decades, India faced poverty on a scale few other nations experienced, but determination refused to allow it to remain poor forever. Families sacrificed, parents worked tirelessly, children studied hard, and slowly, generation after generation, the nation lifted itself upward. Today, India's middle class is one of the fastest growing in the world. That did not happen by accident. It happened because of determination to rise above limitations and to create a better life. The same determination is visible in how India approaches the global stage. Other nations may have more wealth, more weapons, or more resources, but India has something even more valuable: belief in its own future. It is this belief that allows it to stand tall in international negotiations, to refuse to bow down under pressure, and to make choices that protect its sovereignty and its people. Determination gives a nation courage, and courage changes history. The world is alarmed because determination is not something you can measure, predict, or control. You cannot calculate it on a chart, and you cannot limit it with policies. Determination is invisible, but it is unstoppable. When people believe they can succeed, when they refuse to quit, they will always find a way, and India's determination is magnified by its size, its diversity, and its resilience. 1 billion determined minds and hearts can move the world. This determination also shapes the future of innovation and progress. Young Indians are not content with small dreams. They want to reach Mars. They want to build world-class companies. They want to lead in science, technology, and culture. They are not waiting for permission. They are not waiting for others to open the door. They are building their own doors and walking through them. That attitude, that unshakable belief in possibility, is what transforms nations from rising powers into global leaders. And so, when we talk about India's unstoppable rise, we must remember that at its core is determination, a determination forged in struggle, strengthened in resilience, and fueled by ambition. It is not a temporary energy, it is a permanent force. And that force is now awake, alive, and moving forward with unstoppable speed. The world sees it, the world feels it, and the world is alarmed because they know that no amount of doubt, resistance, or fear can hold back a nation powered by pure determination. So what does all of this mean? It means that India's rise is not a coincidence, not a temporary spark, and not a story written by others. It is a journey powered by the strength of its youth, the engine of its innovation, the unbreakable resilience of its past, the confidence of its global presence, and above all, the unshakable determination of its people. When you combine all of these forces, you do not just get progress, you get momentum. And momentum, once it begins, cannot be stopped. The world is alarmed because they see what is coming. They see a nation too young to grow old, too resilient to collapse, too innovative to fall behind, and too determined to be denied. They see a power rising not through conquest, but through discipline, ambition, and vision. And they know that such a rise will not only change India, it will change the entire world. This is the message: limits are illusions, struggles are not the end, they are the beginning, and determination, when multiplied by millions, becomes destiny. India has chosen its destiny. It is no longer waiting for opportunities, it is creating them. It is no longer following the world, it is leading it. And that, my friends, is why India's unstoppable rise is not just a story of one nation, it is a lesson for all of us. That when you believe, when you fight, when you refuse to give up, there is no force on earth that can hold you back.